Welcome to the 1 Hour Guide by Anil Nathu. Today on the deep dive, we're tackling a really foundational text for anyone looking to get a handle on their mental well-being. Dale Carnegie's How to Stop Worrying and Start Living.
A classic.
Exactly. Our mission with this deep dive, which is a cornerstone of the 1 Hour Guide by Anil Nathu, is to go beyond just a summary. We're aiming to pull out the core principles from each chapter, give you some in-depth examples, case studies, really illustrate how these lessons apply in real life.
Right.
Think of it as your shortcut to understanding Carnegie's techniques for conquering worry and, like the title says, actually starting to live.
And it's fascinating when you think about how Carnegie put this together. He wasn't just theorizing. He drew from so many interviews, real experiences from people in his courses.
Yeah, practical
It
stuff.
was totally practical. It was grounded in how people actually dealt with worry, their struggles, their successes. That's why it still clicks today, I think.
Okay, let's dive right into chapter 1 then. Live in day-tight compartments.
The main idea here is just the sheer power of focusing on right now. Consciously choosing not to get bogged down by the future what-ifs or the past if-onlys.
And he introduces Sir William Osler, right? Amazing physician, professor at 4 top universities, author, even though he apparently thought he wasn't particularly brilliant himself.
Yeah, quite humble about it.
Osler's whole day-tight compartments thing is such a great visual. He compared our lives to these big ocean liners, Each day is a separate watertight section.
Okay.
So if one part springs a leak, like a problem today, the whole ship doesn't automatically go down. We can seal it off.
Seal off the past worries, the future anxieties.
Exactly. So they don't flood the present. Osler put it so strongly. Shut off the past. Let the dead past bury its dead. Shut out the yesterdays. The load of tomorrow added to that of yesterday, carried today, makes the strongest falter.
Shut off the future as tightly as the past. The future is today. There is no tomorrow. The day of man's salvation is now. Powerful stuff.
Really powerful. And Carnegie gives that practical example too, the army doctor in wartime. His advice was just 1 grain of sand at a time, 1 task at a time.
So simple, but effective.
And it wasn't just for war. This advertising director for Ad Crafters Printing, he found it super useful in business too.
Right. Breaking down overwhelming tasks into just what needs doing today.
Yeah, it makes huge problems feel manageable.
And then there's that incredible story of Edward S. Evans.
Oh, yeah. That one's intense.
Facing huge business problems, massive debt, worry literally almost killed him. Couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Doctors gave him, 2 weeks?
Incredible.
At a turning point. He just decided to stop worrying and focus only on the present task, selling those automobile blocks.
Just that one thing.
Just that. Shutting out the past failures, the future fears. And it wasn't just that he recovered physically, which was amazing in itself.
He went on to become president of Evans Products.
Exactly. It just shows the real physical toll worry takes and the incredible power of focusing on the now.
Carnegie uses some great little quotes to hammer this home, too, like the White Queen from Alice in Wonderland.
Jam tomorrow and jam yesterday, but never jam today.
Perfect. Captures how we live everywhere but the present.
And Montaigne's line, my life has been full of terrible misfortunes, most of which never happened.
So true. How much energy we waste on things that never occur.
Exactly. Little mental nudges, right? Reminding us where our minds usually wander.
And there are others, too. Dante.
Yeah, Dante. Think that this day will never dawn again, urging us to really value today.
Lil Thomas used that song, too.
This is the day which the Lord hath made. We will rejoice and be glad in it.
A call to find joy now.
And Osler himself kept that poem, Salutation to the Dawn by Kalidasa, on his desk. Look to this day, for it is life, the very life of life. It just perfectly sums up living fully in the present.
Okay, moving on to chapter 2. This one introduces a magic formula for solving worry situations. Comes from Willis H. Carrier, the engineer.
Right. And it's not actual magic, obviously. It's a very practical 3-step process.
So what are the steps? How does it work?
Well, step 1 is ask yourself, what is the worst that can possibly happen?
Okay, face the fear.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Nail it down. Stop the vague anxiety and define the actual worst outcome. Often, just doing that makes it seem less terrifying.
Right. The unknown is usually scarier.
Precisely. Then step 2, prepare to accept it if you have to.
Accept the worst. That sounds defeatist.
It's not really about giving up. It's more about mental preparation. Acknowledging, okay, if that happens, I can handle it. And strangely, that acceptance often brings a sense of calm.
Interesting. Acceptance brings calm. I see that. It stops the fighting against what if.
Exactly. You stop churning emotionally,
Yeah.
which leads directly to step 3.
Which is?
Then calmly proceed to improve on the worst.
Ah, okay. So once you've accepted the possibility, you're freed up mentally.
Totally. The worry loses its grip, and you can start thinking rationally about solutions, about making things better than that worst-case scenario.
Carnegie gives that business example, right? The $20,000 potential loss.
Yeah, great example. They went through the steps, defined the worth, losing the 20K, mentally accepted it, then they could think clearly.
And they actually found a way to turn it around.
They did. Saw an opportunity, invested another $5,000, and ended up making a $15,000 profit. It shows how accepting the worst can paradoxically open the door to finding better outcomes.
That's really powerful. And then there's the story of Earl P. Haney, another intense one.
Oh yeah. Severe health problems, ulcers, losing tons of weight, all driven by worry. Doctors basically said he was incurable.
So what happened?
He was on a ship, caught in a terrible storm, thought he was going to die, and suddenly, all the worry just vanished. He felt calm.
Facing the ultimate worst case, maybe.
Perhaps. And that mental shift seemed to directly impact his physical health. He got back home, kept that relaxed mindset, forgot his troubles, and fully recovered. It really highlights that mind-body connection, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And reinforces Carrier's formula. By facing the worst, accepting it, focusing on the moment, he somehow unlocked his own recovery. A calm mind is a powerful thing.
Definitely. Okay, chapter 3 gets pretty serious. What worry may do to you. Carnegie really lays out the damage.
Yeah, this chapter is a real wake-up call. No mincing words about the high cost of worrying. He quotes Dr. Alexis Carrel, the Nobel laureate, saying, "Businessmen who do not know how to fight worry die young."
And Carnegie points out it's not just businessmen.
No, absolutely not. Housewives, doctors, bricklayers.
Right.
Worry doesn't discriminate. And Dr. Gober's estimate is just staggering.
What was that again?
He figured 70% of all patients who come to physicians could cure themselves if they only got rid of their fears and worries.
70%. That's huge.
It is. He linked it to things like nervous indigestion, some stomach ulcers, heart issues, insomnia, headaches, even some kinds of paralysis.
And the stomach ulcer connection comes up again, doesn't it? Dr. Alvarez at the Mayo Clinic.
Right. He saw ulcers flare up with emotional stress.
Yeah.
And that study of 15,000 stomach patients, 4 out of 5 had no physical cause found.
Wow.
Their problems were chalked up to fear, worry, hate, selfishness, inability to adapt. It's sobering that worry can cause ulcers, which can actually be fatal.
Absolutely. And it's backed by more research, too. That study by Dr. Habib on executives.
Yeah, 176 executives, average age just over 44. More than a third had heart disease, ulcers, high blood pressure.
Yeah.
All linked to high-tension living.
Makes you question the rat race, doesn't it? What's success worth if it costs you your health?
Exactly. And Carnegie also touches on mental health. The number of young men rejected from the WWII draft for psychiatric reasons. He suggests fear and worry play a big role, sometimes causing people to retreat from reality.
It's a heavy chapter, but filled with examples. General Grant's physical issues during the Civil War.
Throat problems, indigestion, directly tied to the stress. And they vanished when things looked like victory was near.
And Henry Morgenthau, the Treasury Secretary, getting physically dizzy from worry over a wheat deal.
Shows how visceral the reaction to worry can be.
But Carnegie doesn't just list the problems, he offers solutions. That 3-step method for tackling problems.
Ah, yes, the Aristotle-inspired one.
Oh, yeah.
Simple but effective. Step 1, get the facts.
Okay.
Step 2, analyze the facts.
Right.
Step 3, arrive at a decision and then act on that decision.
Moving from feeling to thinking to doing.
Precisely. It breaks the cycle of just spinning your wheels worrying. Dean Hawkes at Columbia said, confusion is the chief cause of worry.
So getting the facts combats the confusion.
Exactly. Gather the info before deciding. Don't rush into decisions based on incomplete, confusing data.
And Galen Litchfield's story dealing with that Japanese admiral crisis during the war, he used a really structured approach.
He did. Wrote down exactly what he was worried about, then listed what he could do, then decided what to do, and crucially, started immediately.
That systematic process brought relief, even under huge pressure.
Absolutely. And you see similar methods elsewhere. Simon & Schuster, the publishers, using those direct questions in meetings.
What's the problem? What's the cause? Possible solutions. Suggested solutions.
Yeah. Cutting through the waffle, focusing on action. Frank Bedecker, the insurance salesman, he nearly doubled his income just by sitting down and analyzing why he was feeling discouraged. nailing down the root cause.
It seems like action is a recurring theme, too. Osa Johnson throwing herself into lecturing after her husband's death.
Kept herself so busy she didn't have time for grief and worry. And Tremper Longman beating insomnia by deliberately working incredibly long hours.
Pushing out the worry with activity.
Right. Like George Bernard Shaw said, the secret of being miserable is to have the leisure to bother about whether you are happy or not. Action drives out worry.
That submarine story is terrifying, though. 15 hours of depth charges.
Puts everyday worries into perspective, doesn't it? Facing imminent death, they realized how trivial their past worries about bosses or quarrels really were.
And Admiral Byrd's observation about his men in the Antarctic, worrying more about small annoyances than the massive dangers.
Yeah, the pains in the neck. It's so easy to let tiny things get under our skin.
Like Eleanor Roosevelt shrugging off a bad meal versus someone blowing up over a minor mistake.
Or Catherine the Great laughing off a spoiled dish. It's about emotional maturity, keeping perspective.
The Rudyard Kipling feud story is cautionary tale, though.
Oh yeah, the Vermont feud over a load of hay. Such a small thing ballooned into bitterness, worry, him leaving his home. As Pericles said, "Come, gentlemen, we sit too long on trifles."
And the chapter wraps up with that analogy from Dr. Fosdick. The giant tree.
Right. Strongest tree in the forest, survives storms, lightning, but eventually brought down by tiny beetles.
The little things.
Exactly. His point was, let's not allow ourselves to be upset by small things we should despise and forget. Remember, life is too short to be little. It's another great lesson from Carnegie, really central to the approach you find in resources like the 1 Hour Guide by Anil Nathu, focusing on what truly matters.
Absolutely. Okay, let's move to chapter 4. Cooperate with the inevitable. This sounds a bit like resignation.
Not exactly resignation, more like acceptance of things you genuinely cannot change. Carnegie starts with a personal story about losing a ring as a kid. The lesson was learning to accept what's done is done.
Makes sense.
Then there's the powerful story of the man whose nephew died in the war. Initially, he was incredibly bitter, rebellious against fate.
Understandable.
But then he reread a letter from his nephew, urging him to carry on no matter what happens. Hide your private sorrows under a smile and carry on.
Wow.
That changed everything. He went back to work, stopped being bitter, started writing letters to soldiers, took adult education classes. He found joy by living as his nephew would have wanted. He accepted the loss and channeled his energy positively.
That's a profound shift, and Booth Tarkington's experience with blindness.
Another incredible example. Facing blindness, multiple operations.
Yeah.
He just accepted it. Focused on what he could still do within his mind.
He refused a private room, wanted to be with others.
Yeah, and he had this positive view, appreciating the scientific advances that even made the eye surgeries possible. He said, I could take the loss of my eyesight, just as a man can take anything else. If I locked all 5 of my senses, I know I could live on inside my mind.
Amazing resilience.
And he even said he wouldn't trade the experience, echoing John Milton's discovery that it is not miserable to be blind, it is only miserable not to be able to endure blindness.
Like Margaret Fuller's credo, I accept the universe.
Exactly. But Carnegie is careful to say this isn't fatalism. If you can change a situation, you absolutely should fight. But if it's truly inevitable,
then fighting it just wastes energy.
Right. He quotes Dean Hawkes again, using that Mother Goose rhyme. For every ailment under the sun, there's a remedy, or there is none. If there be one, try to find it. If there be none, never mind it.
Simple wisdom. Find a solution if possible, accept it if not.
J.C. Penney had a similar philosophy about money. I wouldn't worry if I lost every dollar. I don't see what is to be gained by worrying. I do the best job I possibly can and leave the results in the laps of the gods.
Elsie McCormick put it well, too. Stopping the fight against the inevitable releases energy.
Energy which enables us to create a richer life. It's about redirecting that effort. Like trees in an ice storm, the ones that bend survive, the rigid ones break.
Good analogy. Carnegie shares his own experience, too, overseeing loading explosives during the war.
Yeah, sheer terror initially. Then a conscious decision. Okay, the worst is I get blown up. So what? It'll be quick. Better than cancer. I should do this job anyway. Might as well accept it. And the fear vanished.
Acceptance again leading to calm.
And Charles Roberts losing $20,000 of his friends' money in the stock market, he dreaded facing them.
But they were okay with it.
Surprisingly optimistic. Their friendship remained intact. It shows how often our imagined catastrophes are worse than reality.
Carnegie talks about putting stop-loss orders on emotions. What does he mean?
It's like in trading. Decide beforehand how much emotional energy something is worth. And don't let yourself lose more than that. on worry or resentment over something you can't change. Assess the situation, decide its importance, and cap the negative emotion.
That's a practical way to think about it. He even applies it to his own big disappointment, his novel.
Yeah, years of work on The Blizzard, his dream of being a novelist.
Yeah.
Crushed when his agent said it was worthless. Huge shock, but eventually acceptance. Cooperating with the inevitable reality that that particular dream wasn't going to happen.
Okay, Chapter 5 introduces 8 words that can transform your life. What's the core message here?
It boils down to the immense power of our thoughts. What we think fundamentally shapes our reality and our feelings.
Emerson's quote comes to mind.
A man is what he thinks about all day long. Absolutely central. Carnegie uses the story of Mary Baker Eddy.
Founder of Christian Science.
Right. She was apparently homeless, destitute, suffering a severe breakdown. She found immense solace and healing reading Jesus' words. Specifically, "Why callest thou me good? There is none good but one, that is God."
And that led to her core idea.
That experience led her to understand that all causation was mind and every effect a mental phenomenon. The power of thought.
There's another story, too, the man with the nervous breakdown.
Yes, feeling deserted, suicidal. His father wrote him a letter pointing out the problem wasn't the external situations, but his thoughts about them.
Quoting the proverb,
"As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he." That realization sparked his recovery.
and the man given a death sentence by doctors.
Saved himself, essentially, by deliberately acting cheerful and thinking positive thoughts of health and courage. A changed mental attitude literally changed his physical outcome. It's incredible.
William James talked about this too, right? Turning evil into good.
Yeah, James said. Much of what we call evil can often be convened into a bracing and tonic good by a simple change of the sufferer's inner attitude from one of fear to one of fight, shifting the internal perspective.
Then Carnegie introduces the Just for Today program by Sybil F. Partridge. That's a really practical guide.
It really is. A set of 10 resolutions for cultivating a positive mindset, just for one day at a time. Things like,
Just for today, I will try to live through this day only.
and not tackle my whole life problem at once.
Right.
And just for today, I will try to adjust myself to what is.
And not try to adjust everything to my own desires. Accepting reality.
Taking care of your body, strengthening your mind, doing a good turn secretly, being agreeable.
Making a plan. Having quiet time. Being unafraid.
Especially unafraid to be happy, enjoy beauty, love, and believe in being loved. It's a wonderful daily practice.
And the chapter concludes with a clear rule for developing peace and happiness.
Rule 1, think and act cheerfully, and you will feel cheerful. It sounds simple, but it's about actively choosing your thoughts and actions to influence your feelings.
Moving to Chapter 6. The high cost of getting even. This seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah, the core idea is that seeking revenge or holding on to resentment usually harms us more than the person we're angry with.
He uses that Yellowstone bear anecdote.
Right. The grizzly bear learned not to mess with the skunk. Why? Because getting even just wasn't worth the stink.
Ah, good analogy.
It applies to us, too. As the saying goes, a man is a fool who can't be angry, but a man is wise who won't be angry.
Mayor Gaynor of New York, even after being shot.
Said from his hospital bed, "Every night I forgive everything and everybody." A conscious choice to let go.
Schopenhauer, the philosopher, usually pretty pessimistic.
Even he advised against nursing animosities because they wound the nurse, not the one being nursed. Holding on to anger hurts you.
The story of Lawrence Jones is incredible, though. Dedicating his life to educating poor African Americans in Mississippi.
Started with just $1.65. And then facing that angry mob ready to lynch him.
How did he handle that?
He just talked to them. Calmly explained what he was trying to do, the school he was building, how white people were actually helping him. He disarmed them with reason and sincerity instead of anger or fear. Amazing courage.
Lincoln's approach to criticism is fascinating, too.
Yeah, dealing with insults from McClellan, Seward, Stanton, his own appointees.
He just let it slide.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
He believed people were products of their circumstances, so blaming or praising excessively didn't make sense. He focused on the bigger picture, not personal slights.
Marcus Aurelius had a similar take. Expect difficult people.
Right. He basically said, every day I'll meet interfering, ungrateful, arrogant people. I shouldn't be surprised or disturbed. Acceptance again.
Then Carnegie tackles ingratitude. Expecting thanks often leads to disappointment.
Yeah, he argues it's somewhat natural for people to forget to be grateful. It's not necessarily malicious.
Like that lonely woman in New York constantly complaining her relatives weren't grateful.
And unknowingly pushing them away with her resentment. Her focus on what she wasn't getting poisoned her relationships.
He compares ingratitude to weeds and gratitude to a rose.
Exactly. Gratitude needs cultivation. If kids are ungrateful, maybe we haven't taught them gratitude effectively.
Which contrasts with the story of Aunt Viola.
Yes. She showered her kids with love and kindness, no strings attached, and in her later years they adored her. Love begets love, not necessarily gratitude-seeking.
So the advice is, be grateful ourselves, model it for kids.
Pretty much. Be mindful of how we talk about gifts or kindness in front of them. Praise effort sincerely.
So the 3 rules to avoid resentment over ingratitude are:
A. Expect it. Remember, Jesus healed 10 lepers, only 1 said thanks. B. Find happiness in the act of giving, not in expecting thanks back. C. Actively train children in gratitude.
Makes sense. Chapter 7, ask a provocative question. Would you take $1 million for what you have?
This chapter is all about perspective and appreciation. Counting blessings, basically.
It starts with Harold Abbott's story. He was in despair.
Yeah, failed business, debts, felt like giving up. Then he met a man on the street.
That man with no legs?
Right. And this man greeted him cheerfully. "Good morning, sir. It is a fine morning, isn't it?"
Wow.
That encounter completely shifted Abbott's perspective. He realized, despite his problems, how incredibly rich he was, just having his health, his limbs. It gave him the courage to get a loan, find a job, turn things around.
Perspective is everything. And the woman studying music who got a heart condition?
Confined to bed for a year. Initially bitter, terrified, rebellious, until a neighbor said something profound.
About the opportunity for self-reflection.
Yeah, suggesting this enforced quiet time could be a chance for inner growth. She decided to actively focus on thoughts of joy, happiness, health. And it transformed her outlook, even if her physical condition didn't magically change overnight.
Logan Pearsall Smith's quote fits here.
There are 2 things to aim at in life. First, to get what you want, and after that, to enjoy it. Only the wisest of mankind achieve the second. It's about appreciating what we do have.
Carnegie recommends Borghild Dahl's book, I Wanted to See.
Written by a woman practically blind for 50 years. Yet she found incredible joy in simple things, soap bubbles, sparrows. Her words were just full of gratitude.
Dear Lord, I thank thee, I thank thee. It's about noticing the beauty around us.
Which we often take for granted, right? The fairyland of beauty that's always there.
The chapter then shifts slightly to the importance of being oneself.
Yes, especially when the world pressures us to conform. Sam Wood, the Hollywood director, saw so many aspiring actors trying to imitate stars.
But the public wants originality.
Exactly. And it applies in business, too. Pretending to be someone you're not just doesn't work long term.
Carnegie even brings in statistics about uniqueness.
The sheer improbability of you being born 1 chance in 300,000 billion. You are fundamentally unique. Why try to be a copy?
He shares his own failures trying to imitate others.
Trying to be like famous actors, trying to write a book by just compiling others' ideas. Both flopped.
Until he realized
He had to be himself. Teach and write based on his experiences, his convictions. Like Sir Walter Raleigh said, I can't write a book commensurate with Shakespeare, but I can write a book by me.
There's that poem, too, about being the best you possible.
Yeah, be the best pine on the top of the hill or the best shrub in the valley. Be the best whatever you are.
Leading to Rule 5, let's not imitate others. Let's find ourselves and be ourselves.
A crucial step away from a major source of worry, the anxiety of not measuring up to someone else's standard.
Okay, Chapter 8, if you have a lemon, make a lemonade, turning negatives into positives.
Exactly. Attributed to Julius Rosenwald of Sears, Roebuck, via Chancellor Hutchins. It's about resourcefulness in the face of adversity.
Thelma Thompson's discovery, the best things are the most difficult.
And Harry Emerson Fosdick. Happiness is not mostly pleasure, it is mostly victory. The satisfaction comes from overcoming challenges.
Like that Florida farmer with the terrible land.
Yeah, barren, full of scrub oaks and rattlesnakes. A total lemon.
But he made lemonade. Or rather, rattlesnake aid.
Exactly. He started canning rattlesnake meat, built a tourist attraction, sold venom, skins, turned his liability into a thriving, unique business. Even got the town renamed Rattlesnake, Florida.
Incredible ingenuity. William Bolitho's quote fits well.
The most important thing is not to capitalize on your gains. Any fool can do that. The really important thing is to profit from your losses. That takes intelligence.
Charles Darwin even felt his poor health helped him focus and work more.
Strange, but true. And Carnegie suggests maybe Lincoln's hardships contributed to his depth and wisdom. turning adversity into strength.
The story of C.R. Burton, orphan, mistreated.
Yet he found kindness, opportunity, became successful, philanthropic. He didn't let his difficult start define his future negatively.
And Dr. Frank Loop, an invalid for 23 years with arthritis.
Instead of succumbing to despair, he adopted the motto, Ich die Surd. He organized letter-writing clubs, helped other invalids, found purpose through his limitations.
Dr. Alfred Adler's approach with depressed patients is interesting too.
Encouraging them to think daily about how they could please someone else. Why? Because it shifts focus away from the self, which Adler saw as a root of worry and depression.
Margaret Taylor Yates, losing her husband at Pearl Harbor.
Overcame her grief and physical weakness by throwing herself into helping other Navy wives and widows. Became so busy serving others, she forgot her own troubles and regained her health.
So even if someone feels their life is ordinary, they can still apply this.
Absolutely. Just by choosing to be more engaged, interested in the people you interact with daily, like the postman, the shopkeeper.
Professor William Lyon Phelps' philosophy, showing genuine interest.
Yeah, his stories about chatting with the ship's cooks, admiring someone's dog, talking to the shepherd. Simple acts of connection that brighten both lives.
And the grandmother who overcame social anxiety by asking her dinner partners about themselves.
Kept the focus off her own insecurities. A clever way to turn shyness into engagement.
The chapter then touches on faith and prayer as tools against worry.
Yes, acknowledging the mysteries of life and the power many find in faith. William James said the absence of faith means collapse. Gandhi claimed prayer kept him sane.
Carnegie mentions his own practice.
Finding solace and perspectives, visiting churches, praying, it helped him manage his own worries.
John R. Anthony's story, The Struggling Salesman.
Found renewed courage, hope, and incredible success after turning to prayer. Felt born anew.
And the missionary in Lucknow facing despair.
Had a transformative experience through prayer, felt called, found new energy and purpose.
So Rule 6 ties back to an earlier theme.
Yes. Let's count our blessings, not our troubles.
Yep.
It's about consciously choosing to focus on the good, the assets, the positives, rather than dwelling on the negatives or the lemons. A fundamental shift in perspective.
So wrapping up, we've covered a lot of ground from Dale Carnegie's How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. Key principles like living in day-tight compartments, facing the worst to solve problems, understanding worry's cost, cooperating with the inevitable, the power of our thoughts, letting go of resentment, appreciating what we have, being ourselves, and turning lemons into lemonade.
A real toolkit for managing worry.
Absolutely. This deep dive, drawing from the insights curated in the 1-Hour Guide by Anil Nathu, has really tried to unpack the practical guidance and lessons from each chapter with those powerful examples and case studies.
Hopefully gives you some concrete things to think about and maybe try out in your own life.
Definitely food for thought. Consider how these ideas might apply to the worries you face. Thank you for joining us today. Buy the book at the 1-Hour Guide website for more business insights. 1-Hour Guide by Anil Nathu.